is I see a lot of panels for a lot of young creatives. They talk about things like, okay, how do I start doing commissions? How do I start my online presence? How do I, promote myself? And I feel like there's plenty of that, and those are very important topics to discuss, but they're also very well covered. Like most people, you can probably, throw a dart at a Twitter account that an artist has done some kind of tutorial for how to do commissions and whatever, how to use Trello and PayPal and all that stuff. So I'm not going to talk about that too much. However, if you have some specific questions about that, we can answer them at the end if you want me to answer those. But for the most part, I want to talk about how to hone your craft. You have something, or maybe you don't have something yet, something you want to work on. It can be art, it could be music, it can be writing, anything creative where you're basically creating something out of nothing, or your experiences will kind of get to that. So things we're going to cover. Just a few topics. First of all, kind of like a formula that I've kind of found for in my life, and kind of by observing what has been successful for other people, kind of how to be prolific, how to kind of quiet the voice inside your head that says, no, people won't like that. All kinds of tactics and things to kind of keep yourself going and keep pursuing something that you want, either just for yourself as a hobby, personal balance, maybe it's something you want to do on the side, maybe you want to just pick up a couple commissions but you have another career, or it's something that maybe it takes off, and maybe it's something that takes you somewhere else, And I think, although we're going to be talking a lot, because I'm here because of my art, we're going to be talking kind of mainly about visual art in that context, but you can apply this to music, you can apply it to writing, or anything that's creative, right? So the spoiler for this one, pretty easy, now, or yesterday, or tomorrow. And there's no pressure. You can even start it a year from now. You can start it when, I started really drawing, really getting into art when I was like 22, 23. And I was starting, so I'm like drawing like worse than, a 12-year-old on DeviantArt, and I'm in university. And it's like, there's already people who are 16 kicking my ass, right? And there's people I'm looking up to who are like, it's like, oh, so you're 24, okay, right? And I'm 28 now, so kind of getting over that. If you want to start something late, or what feels like late, because we live in this society, we live in a kind of a Justin Bieber type society, where like if you're not a prodigy at 12, it's like, why bother, right? Like you can't learn piano at 20, like give up. And that's kind of what we tell people in society, and that's counterproductive. And I'm here to tell you that, like, you can start, you start anytime. And then finally, something that we don't really talk about, like I said when I started out, we didn't really talk about us artists, online. A lot of commissions, a lot of, how to manage things like that. And what we don't really talk about too much is, the importance of self-care in all its forms. Caring for your mental health as being someone who is creating something, because by creating something or practicing something, music, art, writing, there's a lot of time alone. And people, introvert or otherwise, we need that balance, right? Even if you're an introvert, you recharge on your own. Sometimes you have too much energy and you get anxious on your own. You need that reduction in energy when you're with people. Or extrovert, the opposite thing happens. You recharge with people, but then there comes a point where you need to be alone to kind of discharge, right? So those kinds of things. And also, simple things like a lot of young creatives I know, like they'll work super hard and they get really good really fast. They're very prolific, but little things, even physical things about their body kind of, deteriorate way too quickly, wrists, arms, hands, back problems. You need to maintain this tool that you have. It's your most important creative tool, is your body and your mind. Because if you do that, then you're just gonna, there's art burnout that we hear about, but then there's also like, if you're just this all the time, like you need to maintain it, and it's not difficult. Sometimes it's just taking 10 minutes to lie down on a hard surface and your back kind of, you're all good again, or 5 minutes to do, everyone's seen probably these online, right? The tutorials, they show up and they're like, this is the anti-arthritis things, and those are important too, but it's 5 minutes for, your 5-hour maybe work day, or, or creative period where you sit down and say, I'm going to draw something, All right, so first off, we're going to start off with our first point, the most exciting part, and I think the highlight of what I want to talk about. And I've thought a lot about how to boil this down into an easy way to remember. And you can apply this to anything, although I will be mainly talking about visual art. You can apply this exactly. I'll give a few examples for other kind of creative endeavors too. So, first of all, you need to create things that you love. Right? I mean, what's the point of being creative if there's not a spark where you're like, oh, this is something I want to do, this is something I want to see, this is, I mean, I could probably speak for like most people here. I don't know, maybe you felt anxiety about showing someone your animal drawings at one point. Gee, I don't know. We got many of us, you're hiding them a little more than your neighbor next door who's drawing robots in his book, or planes, or Call of Duty just came out and he's drawing an AK-47 20 times, and you're like drawing, Inuyasha, and you're hiding it. It's just like, I don't know, I kind of dig the fact that this boy's got ears. And, draw what you love. You need to create, and there's so many things to love, right? So it's not too difficult, but what's difficult is usually what society tells us, and what we tell ourselves that society has told us. You have an idea of what to make, and you're like, oh well, I want to draw Star Fox 50 times exclusively for a year, but then it's like, that's a bit weird. I don't know, maybe you're drawing this one character too much. It's like, have you tried drawing people? It's like, well, I don't feel like doing that right now. So follow your bliss, follow what you want. Learn to quiet that voice inside your head that discourages you. I already kind of said it a little bit. You're kind of sitting in front of a piece of paper. You're holding your instrument in your hand. You're sitting in front of a keyboard, and you got your Word document or your Google Drive document open. Because Google Drive's free and Windows costs money. And you're worried, maybe unspokenly, that no one's going to like what you make. The first rule is to only listen to what you want to make at first. And continue to hold on to that, because if you like it, there's a really high probability that something you like and you pursue passionately, other people are going to eventually find and it will resonate with them. We have more in common with people around the world than we have different. So if you're prolific, you will find an audience. So don't even worry about that. It might not be the person sitting next to you in school or someone at work, but we are more connected than we've ever been. So I wouldn't worry about that in today's day and age, finding an audience of people to share what you've made. It's about to get a little bit Bob Ross in this section. And honestly, you should be. Yeah, you should be listening to Bob Ross. He has a lot of things other than happy trees to tell you about how to feel good about yourself.
Like Foxtail.
Or yeah. Listen to him too.
Is it Foxtail?
Foxtail.
Yeah. So first, do what you love, right? That's easier said than done sometimes. I get it. I'm not saying this is an easy way to do it, but second step of 3, so we're almost there. Do what challenges you. Do things because they're hard. We're in the States. Like, I mean, you could probably say who I'm about to quote here, but like, you got to do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. So you show up, and find something that is also difficult to do. And odds are the hard things to do, like, if you really like drawing certain characters, but like, maybe I should be looking at some more photographs, or if I'm having difficulty with hands, then I maybe draw some hands if they're difficult. I still have trouble with hands. Or yes, question?
Can we get a digital copy of the slides?
You know what? That's actually a very good idea. Yeah. I will post them.
Yeah.
Where are you posting them?
Yes. I'll put them on probably Twitter. I can make a link for them. I'll probably leave a thread, some links, if people want them. Afterwards, I'll probably think of more places to put them other than just Twitter. Maybe a folder on my Fuzztone FA page if people really liked it. Yeah, because if anyone has any other options or something or suggestions for like I would like to see it here so I can get it easily or something like that, you want to refer back to these, then let me know afterwards and I'll put them there.
One of your fires is okay, so you just take pictures of the cell phone.
Oh yes, go for it. You can take any pictures if you want. I don't mind. I'm not a Broadway actor. You can use flash photography.
You can post it in the comments of Silva Gaudamon's video.
Oh, okay. I can. Oh, okay, got it. Yes. Okay, we'll do that.
Cool.
So link me because I might forget. I will. So DM me on Twitter or something like that, or on Telegram, and same thing. All right. So yes, what challenges you? Seek what is difficult. Something like hands are tough, right? There's a lot of people. Some people, avoid drawing hands forever, and they are perfectly successful doing little 3-fingered lumps their whole life, and that's fine, right? But I'm just using that as an example. Maybe full bodies are difficult. Maybe backgrounds are difficult. Like for me, I was making a portfolio recently, putting everything together to apply to an art school, and I realized, wow, I've only done like 2 backgrounds, and most of them are in a comic book. So like, look at what you've done and seek like, okay, this challenges me. It's important to focus on your strengths, follow what you love. But it's also important to give yourself a little bit of breadth because then it allows you to expand what you have. It's like if you know an instrument, it's one thing to sit down and learn something. I'm a guitar player, so learn something via tablature, but it's a completely different thing when I know all my scales in something and all of the background, all the theory, and I show up to a tablature and I already know the key, I already know the scales used, I already know some background information about likely things the composer is going to do, and I can learn that piece way quicker than if I was just trying to do the song and basically play or piano, my guitar, and memorize completely 100%. It's a lot more load, right? Because in that time I could learn 10 songs while someone else is, memorizing Freebird, and it's like, do you know what the key of that song is? Like, 12? Is that a key? So, breadth and expanding your knowledge base. And this one is a little bit of a combination of the first two and an application, so it's really not that difficult to memorize. What you love, what challenges you, and what you know will help you improve. Setting goals is important, but also letting go of immediate expectation. Expect to put in a lot of time. A good Chuck Jones quote, Chuck Jones, Warner Brothers, right, invented Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner and all that stuff. He has a fun thing that he says that I hang on to, and you can apply it, although it's art-based, you can apply it to anything. He says, you have thousands of bad drawings in you. The only way to get rid of them is to draw them out. And if you have that expectation, maybe don't call all your drawings bad, because artists, we kind of have a habit of downplaying what we produce. But you have, it's okay to allow yourself to improve. And by saying that, because you're saying, I will improve if I put in the time, that means at some point in time, you're not as good as you will be. So just forgive the expectation. Allow yourself to improve, and allow yourself to, not be as good now, because you can be good later if you put in the time.
I love that. That reminds me a lot of what I've learned about the game Go, is that you want to lose your first 100 games as soon as possible. I'm at about 30.
At least you're honest.
Exactly. Like, you're not gonna, be undefeated champion of fighting games all over the world or something like that if you don't lose a few games first, Your older brother or something like that is probably going to kick your ass a whole bunch of times before you beat anyone on a stage. So find art heroes, and I say art as in a more broader sense of like any kind of creative, right? If you're a guitar player, like, wow, I like Steve Vai, like have that as a hero. If you're an artist and it's like, well, I like the people who did the concept art for Dark Souls, so those are my heroes. I'm gonna find them and follow them on Twitter and stuff like that. See what they're doing, see what they drew. Maybe be a bit of a creeper. In fact, definitely do, and look at all their old stuff. See what they were doing, see what they are doing now. Copy some things in different ways, but take that copy maybe a little further. If there's a character you really like, trace it, and then draw it separately, for example. Or have it here, reference it, then draw something else. If you really like a pose, use the pose, We don't always have to use photographs. We can use other people's art too, but never stop using photographs. When I do a commission, like oftentimes there's a lot of very strange photographs on my phone of myself doing weird poses because I'm trying to get like something for a piece, and at the end of the day, like if I'm trying to draw something, photograph, very useful, and study the world around you and interpret, simplify, dissect, and learn. So kind of just like what I said, use reference, right? If this is a very kind of, how I've worded it here is more of a more visual art kind of thing, application, but I can get into another example where it's applicable to some other stuff, and it's just a sec. So when it comes to art, looking at the world around you, when we make a cartoon, when we even if it's Looney Tunes or something like that, at some point, while a coyote is a coyote, we know there's an animal that it's based off, and what we see on the screen is an interpretation. It's someone looked at a photograph at one point and said like, oh, I want this. I'm gonna, make exaggerations, simplifications, things like that. But still, at the end of the day, we're like, oh, this looks like a thing that's alive because it's from reference. Yes?
What would you do for the species like protogens and stuff that don't really have real life creatures?
Well, that's a very good example because, like creating creatures is kind of a big part of, concept art. There's a point in time, like I just, finished binging Mass Effect, for example. A lot of that stuff is like a lot of the races and creatures and whatever, like they aren't real, right? So, but they have source material all over the place, right? So a protogen, for example, that's what you said, right? Yes. So something like that, for example, there's bits of it that are based in the human body, right? Like it has arms, it has legs. When you look at, maybe if it has digitigrade hind legs, look at different types of animal back legs. Look at the bone structure and see like, okay, so we have like a femur, and then we have this bit. I'm not a doctor, as you can see. Then we have the foot, and then the toe. Don't think about extra joints. Or, for example, like, just use Mass Effect's example, to make something look more alien, add an extra joint. Hey, look, cool. So, basically, so if there's always some kind of reference. And sometimes to create a creature, like a protogen, it's the robot face, and I've seen a bunch of different designs for the creature that surrounds the face, because people allow their interpretations, right? So draw from many sources, but also draw from real life things a bit. You know, look at other artists' interpretations. You know, maybe you have 3 different artists who draw protogens that you like. Be like, oh, that's a decision they made on a protogen. This is also a decision they made. I like how they did the ears and the hands and stuff, and I like these legs. So mix and match and stuff, but also okay, but how do the legs actually work? Then maybe you need to look at something that's a physical, real world example. So like a cat or a dog's hind legs, or some other creature that I might not be listing. Does that kind of answer? Okay, nice. So yeah, so that's kind of our first topic here. Do what you love, what challenges you, and what you know will help you improve. And that's kind of like the workout, kind of, going to the gym of it. If you're trying to eventually, deadlift more. I don't deadlift anymore because it hurt my back one time. You got to start somewhere. You got to start with those 10s on the end, and eventually, work up, right? If you're having trouble, okay, I want to draw comics one day, so draw comics. You have to start somewhere, but maybe draw some simpler comics. Look at some layouts that already exist before you go like, okay, well now I want this scene, and you're not alone. There's media created before, and it's important to look at what other people have created, and challenge yourself based on that. All right, so this one, like I kind of spoiled it already before. You can start now if you're like Will Smith, Here it is. So if you haven't started yet, that's okay, right? You can, I know, like, I started at, 22, 23. I was basically going on my 23rd birthday, that kind of thing, 'cause I'm born October, so that's when I really, started drawing a lot, because I had a friend who was kind of boning up to go to art school too on their way out of university, so they kind of, I had friends, so it made me feel okay to draw the stuff that I liked, So, or another example, I always get his name wrong because I mix him up with the Half-Life boy. Morgan Freeman got his first big movie role when he was like 50 or something like that, right? It took me, like, of drawing a lot between classes and stuff, probably should have been studying more, but whatever, to get where I am now, and I still have a long ways to go, even if I started tomorrow, and I hadn't been, we all still have, hopefully plenty of time left, so there's no reason to not enrich your life with something and start a task that you've wanted to, Don't let writer's block kind of take you over. So it's never too late when you have time to create. Don't hesitate. It's a fun little rhyme. Could be in like a Public Enemy song, right? So if you have time, and sometimes it's about making time. Now this is my little moody, this section, but when you make even more and more time, sometimes it's just 5 minutes a day. I would tell my guitar students, try just doing 5 minutes of practice a day, because usually what you try to tell a student is like an hour and half an hour, 3 hours a day, 5 hours a day on guitar. It's unreasonable for a lot of people, right? Carnegie Hall isn't tomorrow. We don't need to practice that much. So what I would tell my younger students especially, and also my adult students, sometimes it works the same, is I would say get your guitar out of the case, 5 minutes. Or I'd say something even smaller if time was not a thing for a younger student. Be like, I want you to play this piece once or 3 times. They never do it. It's like the Lay's commercial. You can't just have one. You keep going, right? Often. Sometimes it's the bare minimum. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes they play through the passage once. The guitar goes away. sometimes, actually more often than not, they get the guitar out, they put it in their hands, maybe they play that thing like 5 times or something like that, maybe they start messing around, they start experimenting, maybe they start going on the internet and be like, hey man, I want to learn how to play Day Tripper, you know, because that was on the radio. And even though it's not what I assigned, they're still taking time to build confidence on the instrument. So if you're like in, you know, art at school in high school or something like that, or just using that as an example, you have assignments and stuff that you need to do for the grade. But, you know, sometimes you sit down and you're just like, man, I want to draw flowers because that's I feel like right now. It's like, I want to draw another OC. I want to draw 3 OCs. I should be doing my homework, but no. But, like, you're still working on building that skill, right? And we're doing what we did before, you know? What you love, what challenges you, you know, help you improve. You're putting the time in. Even if it's not like, you know, okay, I think I knew one person, I'm not going to say their name, they just wanted to figure out the mechanics of drawing, exclusively that thing. It was only studies, only reference, only photographs. Just, this guy was looking at it like somehow he would do enough life studies and all of a sudden he would be a great furry artist. And it's like, okay, that's very good, you're doing something important and the fundamentals, but like, it looked like he was unhappy doing it, you know? He's just like, no, I'm not good enough yet. And it's like, technically no one is, but like, chill out a bit, you know? It's in those, if you have the motivation to do those fundamentals, to do those exercises, that's great. But, you know, chill out. It's just art, you know? Make something fun for you, you know? And then share it with people. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find at least one other person who's going to take it also. So like I said, I started drawing when I was 22, 23, and a lot of my art heroes are younger than me. Some of them are older, many of them are, a lot of them aren't guys. So that's kind of where I'm at, is you can, there's no big rush, you know? I really believe, you know, that even if you're 30, you can start something. I think I was playing in a band when I was back in Calgary. Well, I mean, that's where I'm still there. But our bass player, the first thing he went to school for was animation. And then he realized, oh, this actually isn't where I want to be. Then he went back to school for music performance. And then after a while of being out, he's like, you know what? I'm going to go to New Zealand and get my teaching degree. And he's like 30-something right now, and he's had the opportunity, like we played around Calgary, we played a whole bunch of shows. I even had the chance one time to play like a big theater, play bass opener for some guy from Palestine to do a crazy benefit concert, and just by keeping at it, you know? And it's important to not discourage yourself because of, you know, the Justin Bieber paradox, where like if you're not great when you're 11, you give up, you know? Don't do that, right? Some people win the lottery, but that does, you know, that's not a good life plan to count on the lottery. Oh, I didn't win the lottery when I bought one ticket. I mean, I'm not saying buy the lottery tickets all the time because, dude, it sounds. So, if you really want to do something, you should do it, and you should do it lots. And do it a non-zero amount every single day if you can. And I have a little bit of a math degree, so I like using fun words like non-zero, because I think to me it sounds clinical and just cold enough to be warm and encourage me that, like, well, a non-zero amount is like anything, right? You can pick up your pencil and just like one line, boom, that's non-zero. Check in the box, you know, and you did it, right? Just like how I told my students, like 5 minutes a day, 1 minute. Jeff, just pick up get it out of the case, like once. You could even do your silly, like, you know, Jack White does that thing, he strums across the top and makes a sound. And just do that. And that's fine. You know, that's enough because you did it a non-zero amount. And the more times you do a non-zero amount, the more times you're likely to do a whole lot. So that's why I hang on to fun words like that. Because some people, they have this don't break the chain thing, do something every day, finished, you know, a whole landscape every day, follow along with Bob Ross every single day, and it's like, that's a lot of time, and sometimes we don't have that, you know, but in an art example, you know, if you have a napkin, you got a pencil, you can draw something, you know? And here is something that I have a good note for. Something called, like I like to refer to as the endless catch-up paradox. Each artist and creative has their own convergence point or peak. Comparing two experts in any field, music, art, etc., is not as simple as, you know, who scored the most points. It's not like, I don't know, long jump or 100-meter dash, right? At the end of the day, it's like, well, you can't just like, you know, well, I ran the 100-meter dash in 14 seconds, but like I did it like this, you know? Like it's a little less like art and more like Usain Bolt is the fastest man, and he set the record, and like it's a little more like literal and defined. So it's more like we're talking about art here, and there's plenty of room for all of us. To use it like a musical example, you could compare like a great, you know, R&B rap artist, you know, and then a really amazing old kind of classic rock player. You could, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I might piss some people off in the room, but like the point is we can't compare them, and they're both masters in their field. You know, you go like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Kendrick Lamar. Can't compare them. Those are two completely things. That's apples and spaceships. You know, you can't eat a spaceship, but also an apple can't go through rain tree really well. You know, they're two so different things, but we have room in the world for those two very different types of audio media. So if you're creating something and you have a comic idea, you have a story idea, you have a game idea, some piece of media, you can always improve in your field. But for example, I don't know if maybe Steve Vai showed up in the studio with Kendrick Lamar and he's like, I can do this shit, I'm a composer, I can just show up in the mic and spit fire. It's like, not quite. But then if Kendrick Lamar held Steve Vai's guitar, it's like, okay, I know a few chords, I've composed things before, but like, two very different things. They have understandings of each other, but you diverge. Right? So just like one artist, you know, even if you're both drawing furries, you can both draw completely different things and create completely different worlds. You have different ideas because you're two different people. And you can gain the same amount of following or enjoyment or fulfillment or capability in whatever you're doing. So don't worry about feeling like you're going to catch up to someone. That's actually kind of what the whole thesis of that is, you know, you can feel like you're catching up to someone. If I really like Tracy Butler of Lackadaisy, if anyone knows that comic, I love it. It's like my favorite thing. I'm never going to be her because I am not her. But it is important to look up to our heroes because they can pull us forward. But as they pull us forward, you know, like a point of gravity, we may end up over here, right? And we can't compare the 2 points, but they still got us there. Okay. So, okay. I got in here a little late, so we'll kind of make up things as we go. So, like I said before, this is our kind of a last main point about this, and this one's very important. That's why I put it at the end, so I can kind of leave you guys with this. Well, not quite at the end yet, but last of the 3 topics I kind of wanted to cover. You are your most valuable art supply, so take care of yourself. Like I said, a lot of artists online were a whole bunch of weird kind of loner, depressed balls of stress. So we, you know, have to spend a lot of time alone to create. You know, it's a distraction-free environment, but you know, by dint of doing that, you can't like be in a bar, you know, and do that, right? You can't just be completely social all the time. Some people, even when they stream, you're in your room alone often. So balance is important. oftentimes what I've started to do to really improve my productivity, and although this is kind of getting more into like a freelance professional thing, you can also use it, with anything else. If you're trying to learn an instrument, sometimes it's not as good to just kind of sit there and trying to grind through a piece and learn something, or do as much work as you can do in a day on art or whatever. Go outside. Go outside. Outside is an incredible, important place to be. Sometimes I will try and grind away at something. You'll notice comics don't come out very frequently. Sometimes I will try and work away and maybe a 12-hour ordeal and I still won't finish. But if I just go outside, I take time for me, I decide to sit quietly, take a nap, something quiet, decide to go see my family, go see my friends, play a reasonable amount of online games with friends so I can talk with them. It's important to decide to do things for yourself. Then you come back to what you were working on, and you'll find you'll move faster. I'm a little biased here because I've come up with those kind of little strategies and stuff going through school system as an unmedicated ADHD person. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, is you balance all the serotonin, dopamine uptake kind of weird stuff and all those fun words that I'm not going to talk about. So taking time for yourself. And on the topic of, if anyone wants to go more into how do I be productive but also have ADHD, which is a question no one can really answer, but I feel like I've gotten close.
I can answer. Okay, so this is what you have to do. Because one thing's going to bore you. You have 3 things you're doing, at least, and you work on whichever one you can focus on the most. And that's what your focus is. If you can't focus on something, bounce to something else. If none of those are enough, have a 4th sometimes thing, or just take a nap. Or get some chamomile tea.
Yeah, exactly. And
I deal with this all the time.
that's something about I keep doing this. I want to shadow puppets. But, so having, exactly, just like you said, having multiple things to be doing, our school system doesn't really prepare our ADHD brains for how to make our ADHD brains work really well. And I think even people who don't have that particular learning difference with them can learn from this struggle. I think everyone is more similar than we think. School tries to get us to sit down and work on one thing for a long period of time. You get home, dinner, and then homework before games kind of thing. Probably everyone's heard something like that, right, when you're younger. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like pulling your own teeth out. You can't do it. So I suggest maybe don't do it exactly like that. If it takes you, for example, when I had to write essays, those were my pulling teeth. I avoided them as much as I could, but sometimes I have to write them. Sometimes exactly. Sometimes we have to write stuff down, and sometimes we have to write 2,000 words. That's a task that can take some people 3 hours or less. That's a task that can take me 2 days, but I can get through it easier if I decide to, okay, I'm going to do a few sentences, I'm going to do this page, and then I'm going to take a break. Maybe that break is longer than, the tomato timer, if anyone knows that kind of tactic where you do like a 20 minutes, and then you get back for half an hour, and then you do 5 minutes, and you get back. It's like, I can't do that. So if I have a day, I'll take my day. I'll work for a little bit, and this is, on days that I'm struggling. So I'll work for a bit, I go and take a break. Pretty disciplined, but it's not a 5-minute break. I can't take a 5-minute break. I'm with ADHD. So I'll do something, go outside, do one of those things, lie down, find a whole yoga series, which might take me forever. Then I come back. And then you're kind of like playing roulette a little bit. Maybe the next time you come back, you're in the zone and you can work for 6 hours straight. Maybe again it's like 5 minutes. And then you keep trying to reset and come back. And, that 2,000 word essay gets done in 2 days. And then it just takes you 2 days. But then sometimes, you win the roulette, and it's like, wow, I finished this whole, like sometimes I've finished like things that would have taken me 3 days to do in like 3 hours. And sometimes it's like that. So balance is important. Don't just do one thing and burn yourself out. And it's very difficult because sometimes we get on too much of a roll, or we feel too much of a roll, or there's too much pressure to be on a roll. And we're imposing the role on ourselves. Alright, so in summation, getting creative work done feels great, but taking time for yourself feels even better. So taking that time off and then coming back, you might just work faster. And what I've been doing recently is making a little bit of a wellness checklist. Everyone can make their own separate one. You can have 10 things on it, you can have 2 things on it, you can have 100 things on it. Whatever happens to work for you. Mine's got about 6 to 8 things. Outside is on it twice. And try and do a couple things from this list. Things that are not work, but things that you know are good for you. Remember before? Remember when I was like, do things that know will help you improve? Do things you know are low stress that will make you happy. That you can pull yourself away from. Sometimes Destiny 2 should not be on that list. Just as a random example. Destiny is a very distracting woman.
So
do not trust her.
Random for me as of today. Someone was messaging me to play. Then I realized the PlayStation 4 game. I don't have PlayStation 4, otherwise I would totally play with them after the con.
Ruined my chemistry, I say.
Yes. Alright, so now, mindfulness. Now I'm going to sound like a little bit like a hippy-dippy, but,
Hippies are great.
hippies are great, but, sometimes, sometimes you spend too much time in health food stores buying food that's really expensive and tells us it's gluten-free. So, be kind to your mental state. It can be your best friend or your biggest obstacle. So, sometimes you're feeling good, you have energy, you can create, but then sometimes if you allow it to decay and you're not doing those things to pay attention to yourself, life becomes hard, creating becomes hard, staying on top of the things that you love to do, the things that you want to do, and the things you know will help you improve become impossible. And your whole balance is thrown off. So practicing mindfulness, choose to be grateful, and seek out things that spark joy. That last one has a very good social media connotation with it. Mute buttons are great if you're on Twitter. And it doesn't have to be a mean thing. It doesn't mean like, if you mute someone, it's not like, I hate this, you're bad, I hate you. It's just like sometimes stuff shows up and it does something to your heart or your head and you're just like, you know what, this does not spark joy, throw it away. You do not need this. You do not need everything in the world to show up on your doorstep all of the time. And choosing to limit those negative things and choosing actively to decide to like things, just like your hero's art, to be inspired by things. If you find, a new, Sonic the Hedgehog fan artist and you're like, wow, that's great shit. And then eventually sometimes they show up and they're drawing the IDW comic and you're like, wow, I called that one, didn't I? And, choose to put good things in front of your eyes and ears that make you feel good. And sometimes, preemptively, for maintenance of yourself purposes, choose to remove things that aren't so good. All right, and some routine type stuff. Now this last topic sounds like a little bit more like what I was talking about before, like the, how to be a professional freelancer, but I think we can learn things, all of us can learn things from that professional freelancer who, works completely from home, makes fursuits, whatever, we all have a routine. We all require balance. We all require mindfulness so that we can do the things that we need to do, the things that are hard, the things that, pay rent, and then leave time for the things that we want to do. Make time for the things we want to do. I didn't say this earlier, but the making time thing, I really mean make time. Sometimes it's have time, and we use that verbiage a lot, and I like to use the more active, like, make time, a lot of my students with guitar would have fun excuses for why they didn't practice guitar that weekend. And sometimes it was, sorry, that week I would see them once a week and it'd be like, oh, I had to feed my hamster. How long does this take? Is this like, did you have to go to Mordor and like get the food from the fires of Mount Doom to like and it took you this whole time? Because otherwise, I think it takes 5 minutes. So it's about, now that's a hyperbolic example, but like making time. You know, if you were going to play a video game for an hour, play that video game for 55 minutes. Get out your sketchbook and draw something that you want. You know, look at a coffee cup and be like, I'm going to draw this. Now I'm done. You know, like you did something, right? Making time means taking time out of other things to do something for yourself. Yes.
I know, and that's a question more of just me trying to add to this.
Okay.
But for me, and especially since I have insomnia and depression, which are fun, making sure you figure out how to make sure you get the sleep you need is vital. Mm-hmm. There are two processes in us that put us to sleep. One is a chemical your body is continuously making until it uses up when you're asleep. The other one is the melatonin cycle, which is your body's like, okay, this is a time we're genetically engineered to be awake. And this is a time we're genetically engineered to be asleep. Mm-hmm. And I know, especially with my insomnia, I can't sleep in those awake hours, like at all, even heavily dosed on melatonin. But I can sleep perfectly fine if I can make sure I get in those sleep hours. Mm-hmm. And I always feel how night owls are always more happier than morning birds. And I have to question how many of those morning birds are night owls forcing themselves to be awake when their body says sleep and just sleep when their body says awake. Because that would make anyone miserable.
Mm-hmm. Paying attention to when we are asleep and when we are awake is pretty important. Just like I was saying before about, like, you know, even if you don't have ADHD, pay attention to what ADHD people are saying about how to focus. Just like if you know, not everyone has insomnia, but sometimes listening to someone who has that unique struggle where the difficulty is cranked a little bit past 11 on sleep can help you be like, okay, well, it's a little hyperbolic in my case, but paying attention to something going on can really help kind of, you know, add understanding so that you are more capable. Alright, so that's kind of the three things that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to cap off the things so we can remember all the stuff. And when we, you know, show up to our sketchbooks next time, or our musical instruments, or our Word documents, or whatever you happen to want, you can have a nice concise list. And again, these will be posted somewhere and many places and everywhere all at the same time. So do what you love, do what challenges you, intentionally try and find things that are hard, and do what you know will help you improve.
Unless you already have those things, you know what you need to be working on to improve.
But we're never finished, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
But then also gets to the point with depression, it will, I know with me, that would totally trigger my anxiety, where you like, I have this list of 100 things I need to work on now hard to improve at, trying to then look for things out hard that I need to improve at to that list would be unreasonable. So if you have things that you know will help you already, you don't need to look for more, you can work on those. Make those at least moderate tasks before you start trying to pile more things on top of yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get pushed. And not in a good macro way.
And that's the thing, is you need to be mindful of, you know, this is a general kind of guideline that helped me, but also it's important to realize your specific needs. You know, if making a large list, like you said, gives you anxiety, throw away the list. It does not spark joy. Get rid of it. Throw it out. And do a non-zero amount of the thing a day. You know, draw one line, play one note, tune the guitar, write a sentence about your story or your world or whatever. Just the tiniest bit is okay, because if you start with a tiny bit, every drawing begins with a single line, journey with a single step, piece of music with a single note. You have to start somewhere, right? So if you do decide to start every day, you're more often to continue every day. And that's something that helped me. Sometimes I didn't have time to, do a fully colored painting thing, character drawing that I completely came up with on my own using reference and all this stuff, and it has a background and a story, and then I don't have to do that every day. Sometimes it's like, man, that hand looks lumpy, I'll come back to it tomorrow. Sometimes that's all you get, and that's okay. Forgiving the expectation and having less of an expectation of constant, it's like, man, this looks less like Rembrandt, more like Salvador Dali, And take care of yourself. You are your most important art asset. It's more important than your tablet, more important than your computer, your sketchbook, your pencils. So take care of yourself. Physically, mentally, all our stretches we see online, things that will, actually I have a fun little juxtaposition that I have that I wrote down that I completely forgot. Where is it? Yes. Your most important piece of equipment. Take care of your body, your mind, your spirit. Find people, places, activities that make you happy, that will be difficult. Sometimes step outside your comfort zone is what that means. And that will make you a healthier person. Right? So, things you like, things are hard, things that will help you be happier. See, it's just kind of a 3-step little hey, look, ta-da, I did it, and I applied it to something else. Because you can apply this, there we go, there's my finger, this to art, or anything else, or your life, or whatever, it all can be the same. So yeah, I am finished. I think I covered everything that I wanted to, but we can always build on something, and now you can give me feedback, or if there's specific questions that you want, you can ask them now. Yes.
If I message you on Twitter randomly, will you answer?
Twitter? Yes, I usually do. The only messages I don't answer is if it's just hi. Pro tip, you can start with hi, but put that comma there, then do what you want to talk about all at once. Don't wait for the people, to make the conversation for you. Hi as well. Oh, now I got them. You you already, if their DMs are open, you already got them. You just, respond with your whole thing, right? So that's the pro tip. How to talk to people with maybe a few more than 1,000 followers. They will respond often if you give them your whole thing and you're respectful. So. Anyone else? Yes.
I have found for myself that sometimes having certain locations I go to in order to get work done helps me. Any thoughts on that sort of thing?
That's perfect, and I often forget about that. Being someone who's working from home at the moment a lot. Still a part-time job, but it's difficult because I don't have that luxury. No problem. Thank you very much. I don't often have that luxury, but when I was in university, there were sure places on campus where I would get jack shit done, and was where I would draw and find an instrument to play, and then there's other places where just put me in the zone, right? And that's very, very true, is finding physical locations to get work done if you can. Sometimes the whole trope of the screenwriter who goes to the cafe that no one's ever heard about, but is clearly the best one that exists. That's because that's their place, and they contextually have decided, I am working here, I am remembering here, I am creating here. And sometimes those spaces already exist and you can find them, and it's oh, this energy is good, yes, and you can do it, right? And it's perfect. But some other times, you kind of have to make that space. And maybe, sometimes it has to be your bedroom. Sometimes you still live in a home, or sometimes you have your own space, but maybe you have a separate room you can have your art stuff in, or whatever, or just a corner. Sometimes making that space is a little trickier, because of what it means is, there's the paradox of, you make an art computer and then it's also, oh shit, it can play Destiny 2 really good. Oh no, what am I gonna do? So, like, sometimes you have to make that space, and sometimes you don't always get a physical location, even though that is the most powerful, I believe. Sometimes it's like, okay, certain songs, sometimes you can create that space. Okay, certain songs, podcasts, things to put on, maybe a food item that you use. Like, oh no, if I have a smoothie, that means work time. I'm not gonna make a smoothie and then play a game. That's weird. That's wrong. Something like that, right? So giving yourself, yes, contextual stuff is really important, I think. Sometimes a room is better for a guitar. It just feels that way. Yes?
There's a lot of helpful stuff on YouTube for kind of bringing that space to you. Like, I like going to cafes, but sometimes I can't go. So there's like a lot of cafe background music on YouTube that kind of helps bring that space to me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yes. I'm a big ASMR slut, so like don't even like, I'm just like, I'll sit down, like I'm not gonna play video games and get my tingle on. No way. Like I'll put that on, like I don't care. Just like hence the Bob Ross, right? Like you put him on and he's working, you're like, Bob Ross is getting shit done. Man, I gotta get shit done too. I can't turn on Steam and Bob Ross is working. He's gonna make me look bad, So bringing your productive location to you. There's a whole bunch. Yes, very good. There's a whole bunch of places that can bring that to you. And anyone else? Yes.
I do have a question. So, my mate from California isn't able to be here, and he's actually wondering where you got the inspiration for Boston.
Where I got the inspiration? Oh, where didn't I get it? It's like everywhere, As you could probably guess, like by the everything about me. Not a dad yet. I'm also not as old as that character is.
Oh, yeah.
But nonetheless, it's created from my experiences. And as I moved past that first comic, I started thinking of the characters as different parts of myself. Jimmy is, even though he looks like Timmy Turner-sized version of Danny Phantom. He is me exploring pieces of media without judgment from myself. Claire is that judgment. She's productive, she's creative, but she feels the judgment of the world. She knows she should be uncomfortable about it, or there is stigma, and most of it is imposed upon herself. That's me too. The mom is me teasing my friends and maybe texting them inappropriate things just so I can make them, flustered and blush and shit like that, like, that's, but like she doesn't care. She's presented as like, late 30s, 40, whatever, and she doesn't give a shit that she dresses up like a high school girl, she doesn't care, right? And then the father character, it's a little bit of me. It's a little bit of my own dad. It's someone who, again, doesn't care, but it's also a little bit of an incisive look at like, okay, well this character is kind of a little bit how the rest of the world sees furries, but also he's having fun with it and he doesn't care, so he shows that off anyway, right? And coming back to the first strip, I wasn't thinking about all that so much. I was just kind of making like, like I've had to like tell my parents like, I don't really like drawing people, and this is why, and like I do like Star Fox a little bit too much, so and like this, I wasn't even telling them about like, yes, I do want to spend 5,000 Canadian dollars on a custom Fox costume one day. I wasn't even getting there, like, so everyone can relate to how I wrote that first comic, which took everything off, right? I was thinking, okay, well, everyone can relate to some kind of coming out of the closet scenario, whether it's from a queer place, whether it's from a place that's like, you know what, I don't like hockey actually, I like football instead, and by that I mean football with your feet, not with your hands, you know, like something like that. Everyone can kind of relate to that on some level, however grave or not, you know. And so that was that. And then I'm like, well, you know, it's kind of the concept of like a character that like can't emote but is mad is kind of funny. And I'm just like, wow, look at this perfect thing that I'm interested in that I've definitely been obsessing over for the past 3 years and told no one about. That was the punchline that I shoehorned in. And then because it was a family scenario, it just, you know, I was like, what do I call this comic? I want to make more of them. Okay, what was the punchline? Fox Dad, you know? And then that's kind of how I came up with the first strip. And that's kind of how it evolved. And when you write, it makes it easier and more genuine also, kind of like a little pro tip, to put yourself in the media you create, you know, and it's hard to do that. Really, like, it's easier said than done if you're making a song or a story or a comic. I know this is a very long answer, but you asked someone like me.
No, that's exactly what I want.
Someone like, it's like, oh,
Okay.
it's like, oh, my ADD brain, you asked me a question about something. Let me start at the beginning. I was born in 1991. Like, so, like I said, you just put yourself in what you create, and it will happen easier. Like if you're writing songs, it's difficult because you're like, oh no, I'm putting myself on the page. Oh God, you know, like.
You do
That's
feel
okay.
like a bastard doing it, you do.
Yeah, you feel like, oh, look how great I am, even if it's a sad song or whatever,
Right.
you know, and you feel pompous and, you know, and like too full of yourself. You make something that, you know, makes you look too cool, like you think, you know, but at the end of the day, you should do it because it will make you feel good, you know. That's where I get a little Bob Ross on it. It's just like, you know, if you create something, it makes your heart happy, and therefore you should. So that's where that's where the comic came from, you know. I was lucky enough to have people support me, so it was a no-brainer.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Anytime. Anytime or all time, because we'll go further. We can talk more.
I can chat for days.
Yeah. Anyone else? Cool. All right, and just like I am leaving at like noon tomorrow. So tonight, and also just anyone, you know, just like I said, if you want to contact me, Twitter's really good. My Telegram's the same. Usually I try to respond. In fact, like I seldom do. Sometimes I respond too much and I don't get anything done. So like, please contact me if you have any questions at all. Okay. So good. Thank you very much for coming.
Silver Gatoman, he bought me a coffee. Silver Gatoman, here is the song for thee. He likes to video all the panels at the cons. You should go and watch them whether they are short or long. Silver Gatoman, you video that's not a jibe. All of you go to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe.